I um because you just mentioned it before we started recording. Um, I think actually it might be good because it kind of like blends into the whole thing about face actors being in movie musicals versus actual like singers.
Mhm.
And I mean, you guys can like divulge into this, but yeah, I think, and it kind of goes for multiple industries, for not even just like musical industries that like, Hollywood or any big like movie or video industry loves to have face actors be like these things are basically models being these projects, and sometimes they're not really even talented for singing. They're just like there to look good. They're like Milli Vanilliing it. So, I mean, I'll let you guys share your thoughts on it. I think yeah, I'll let you guys go deeper because my notes are a little bit.
Well,
I only have three
I
notes.
was well, I was just going to say that what I find really interesting about the whole thing is that there's always been this history of Hollywood trying to find shortcuts to use specific actors in movie musicals, but not actually do the work to do actual vocal performances. Like, first off, it was like first they would just dub your voice with someone who can sing if you couldn't sing. It's like what happened with Singing in the Rain. Next, there's this new auto-tune pitch correction technology that comes out, and everyone can magically sing somehow, like with Moulin Rouge, Phantom of the Opera, Chicago, etc. When all those movies came out in like the early 2000s or so. And then
Yeah.
Les Mis 2012 happened when they wanted to do it all live with no pitch correction or anything because there's this like weird mindset of genuine live performances being rougher, but that means they can actually sing. And then all of a sudden, everybody jumps on the bad bandwagon. Like, I remember finding information somewhere that Wicked wanted to record live on set, like what Les Mis did.
Mhm.
But it's so but this also creates the problem where, especially with performers who can't actually sing, just absolutely struggle. Like you have moments in movie musicals that are just so awkward because they have no safety net because and it just becomes very uncomfortable. Like seeing these like people that aren't even professional musicians that struggle on camera. And
Yeah.
also singing live on set is actually more of a nightmare if people don't know if people don't actually know how to approach it. Like
Mhm.
for example, there's extraneous noise on sets, like creaking floors, people shuffling raindrops and whatever that
Yeah.
now they have to use an unnecessary amount of resources to dampen all of that, but not too much because you want to all have the environmental noises and all that. And actually, actually you mentioned this before we started recording the lip syncing not always aligning with pre-recorded vocals because they're
Mhm.
either trying to give their best vocal or their best lip sync performance. Uh, they're trying to make the live performance sound like it came out of a studio microphone and matching the performance. But when they're all trying to do this in a controlled environment, it just becomes a nightmare where it'll inevitably become this artificial mess of trying to blend pre recorded and live vocal performances. And it's also one thing to practice in a studio booth, but it's another to do it live on set. And that's just something that they just don't seem to take into consideration when they do these things. And like I said, not to mention, it's difficult to do this with someone with no professional singing experience beforehand, as this also happened with Beauty and the Beast live action thing, where it was so
Mhm.
heavily edited that it's going to sound artificial, and these pre-recorded voices aren't going to sync up with the lips all the way. Like I said before, I have a lot of thoughts on this sort of thing.
I was gonna say you mentioned the Beauty and the Beast, and I definitely agree. And I did have the feeling when I was watching it that Emma Watson is as good as an actress she is, like a lot of her singing voice was very flat. It did not really have a lot of life that the original actress in like obviously the animated movie brought to the musical section of the movie per
But
se.
you also have to
Yeah.
realize that whenever they're choosing these actors who don't know how to sing, they always talk about like, oh, I went to like practice, like say I went to singing practice or singing training for like a month. It's like, do you guys know how many years it takes for a person like on Broadway, on these big shows to be singing? Like you can't just train your voice in a month. You gotta take And all
2, 3 years to train your voice. And we were so lucky. I just want to finish my thought here. We were so lucky with Little Mermaid and Wicked to have talented voice talent.
Hmm.
And also
yeah.
with Rachel Zegler in the Hunger Games movie and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. She sang live, Halle Bailey sang live, Cynthia and Ariana sang live for Wicked. I'm so glad they chose really good singing talent because they could have rolled with anybody else and it would probably not have been good as much as it came out.
And that's
Yeah.
and that's another thing as well. It feels like now they are starting to realize, hey, maybe we should actually get um singing people who can actually sing for these
Exactly.
roles. And I actually find it interesting that you mentioned that Wicked. I find it interesting that you mentioned about Wicked was
Mhm.
that actually, you know what? I'm gonna save that thought for another time.
Mhm.
I Oh, well, actually, I find it interesting that you mentioned about people like normally with musical performers, they would practice their voice for so many years. What I
Mhm.
find really ironic was
Mhm.
that you in Les Mis 2012, the only reason why Russell Crowe didn't sound as good as he used to because he can't sing. In fact, he
He
can
can.
sing,
He
but
He
the
was
can.
problem was that and this goes back to a bigger point that I hopefully I can get into for this episode, is that not only was he probably exhausted from doing a lot of takes, trying to, sing on full blast, like 10, 12 hours a day.
Mhm.
And second off, I remember that in an interview, he was going to like four different vocal coaches. But the problem is
Ooh.
those, it's not the same thing as like going to like four different scientists or whatever, because each vocal coach has their own different styles and ways of
Method.
teaching, etc. So whenever he went to a vocal coach, he was basically starting over. And I find it ironic because Eddie Redmayne, before he did Les Mis, he did the thing that Russell Crowe should have done, which was go to one vocal coach and practice a lot. And guess what?
Yeah.
He sounded good. Oh my god. So crazy.
I'm telling you, if these people didn't go to several different people, they would have sounded great if they just didn't go to separate different people.
Yeah, because you're getting multiple perspectives on how,
Mhm.
your singing voice should sound, and it kind of ruins your perspective of how you should put like your singing voice or change your singing voice to sound
And
and it
also,
kind of yeah.
when Halle Bailey was singing for the role of Ariel, she wasn't sure if she wanted to do the riff at the end of the song Part of Your World. She wasn't sure if she could do that or not because obviously this is her take on Ariel
Mhm.
and she wasn't sure so she talked to the director and said, "Hey, can I do this?" And they said, yeah, you can do it. You can go ahead and do whatever you want with it and everything, which is great. But when it comes to musicals and adaptation, you some movies, when you're adapting a movie into a musical, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And like, when they just came out with a musical for Death Becomes Her. And I was thinking, like, how are you going to adapt that into a musical? Obviously, it's camp, and the gays love it, and we love it. But it made me kind of wonder how they were going to adapt that, which also makes me wonder, what are your thoughts on taking something of material that's not a musical and adapting it into a musical? Or like if there's like music in a story, like for example, The Hunger Games, how did you feel when the music was incorporated into the plot per se?
I actually have multiple things to say about it. I really think it's very funny when they turn a non-musical product, or even like when they turn a movie into a musical. Like obviously, the Disney Renaissance era was made for Broadway. That
Exactly.
like
That was
they
literally the
knew
whole idea.
they knew what they were doing for that because that was like Broadway's big era. They were all doing that stuff. But like
Mhm.
then you take, and I'm just gonna throw a wild example out here. You take like stuff like SpongeBob
Yeah.
that gets their
Uh,
whole own musical. The actor who plays SpongeBob himself, wonderful actor. We've talked about this behind the scenes, and we've also talked about an interview in that is still in the cutting floor about it a little bit. It's kind of funny to
Mhm.
think like the but when you say like taking the like music from the in the product, it's like diegetic and non-diegetic music. I really think, at least for me, really
Mhm.
does kind of make or break ache like some of these like musicals, because at least in my opinion, you take a look at an example of like musical movies from a couple years ago. It just kind of seemed like you couldn't really tell whether or not like the song was a diegetic or non-diegetic like song.
Mhm.
Like I guess for one example, I mean, take a look at all the High School Musical movies.
Yeah.
Like it basically seemed like half the songs could have just been a whole conversation, and
Yeah.
then some of the stuff is like, okay, well, this actually can take place, and that might not be the right word. Diegetic, non-diegetic might not be the right word, but I think, um, sorry, it's a dumb opinion. I just
so
think
it's
I
like
always kind of laugh about how you can tell what songs could have been in just a conversation or what songs were just there to sell a
so
song. But yeah, yeah, go ahead. I don't want to
so
control it.
so like I mean I understand like the because I've been like sometimes I actually heard this perspective about why would you add in a song number when you could just have it be regular conversation? Like why couldn't you just convey it in regular conversation and all that? And it's like, I mean, it depends
Mhm.
because there is the argument of if you're going to put in a song number, actually commit it to being a full musical instead of just
Yeah.
half-assing it and all that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends. I think it just depends on the project,
Yeah, I
really.
think, but I also think that you can still have the score. That might be the better way
Yeah, the
to say that.
score.
Have the score be just as impactful as the scene in like an acted scene of the movie, not a sung scene, and still be like, this movie might be a musical, but like the way that this scene was acted was a lot better than some of the songs in this scene, but I felt it because of the score. Like the music,
Yeah.
like in it. And you didn't necessarily all the big emotional scenes didn't necessarily have to be, you know, intertwined with vocals. And there are like in some more recent or I'm trying to think like go even back to like some of the animated um Disney Renaissance movies that they did try to do they you do have the like the background music. Like I believe that is the diegetic music. I can't mix up the terms. Like not necessarily all the time where they singing to it, but you can take the vocals out of the song and it still works just as well as just um like take one jump ahead. Like you could use that whole orchestra, that whole thing, and that's just good, really good chase music, I would say. Hey,
Yeah.
there's other stuff in the background. Like I would say that era has really good, memorable music, and you could. But I I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll let you get
I just
guys. Yeah.
actually, you bring up a very good point about how I feel like music, especially, I feel like music, especially in, just any regular movie,
Hmm.
is so undervalued that it's actually kind of ridiculous because music can absolutely help a whole lot.
Oh yeah, no,
And
100%.
going back to the movie musical thing, it's so frustrating when you see movie musicals that are adapted from actual stage musicals. They're
Hmm.
more movie than musical. Despite being a musical, quote unquote, they treat the music like any other ambiance music in any other movie instead of actually being integral to the story, like how the lyrics do in fact matter, and they treat the entire production of a movie musical like any other movie production without considering that the process of making a musical is entirely different from creating a movie. For example, doing the standard or on average, like doing takes for 10 to 12 hours a day where they sing live for every take on at full blast can actually seriously damage your vocal folds, as it
Hmm.
could as like it's not like a sore throat sort of thing, like it as in they could never properly speak again serious, and
Yeah.
they're probably exhausted by the end of it anyway. And it also gets
Yeah.
worse when they're told to basically improv, where the actors are told to improv like any other movie production. But with musical productions, you never have the performers slow down and speed up whenever they feel like it and hope the orchestra catches up because it'll become a mess. It's like
Hmm.
the music in a musical, it's in the name. The music always comes first, maybe the overall plot, and then everything else.
Well, technically, story then music then
Yes, something like
production.
that. Something
Yeah.
like that. And
Yeah.
also and also something that I've noticed is that when these actors, like it started with Les Mis and then La La Land and all that, like they're not getting awards for vocal performances because if you actually look at the vocal performances, they're gosh darn awful. But they're getting awards for acting performances. And to
Yes.
actually bring up my point, what I wanted to mention about Wicked is that I feel like it has the opposite problem. At least from what I remember the first time I watched it, it has good vocal performances, but I just couldn't help but notice that the acting, at least in some parts, just feel a little stilted. Like they
Mm.
feel a little like dry or something. And I feel like Hollywood is still trying to find that middle ground, while of course stumbling and falling to the finish line.
Yeah.
But I
I
still,
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go
But I
ahead, Jen.
still think I'm still not over it that Cynthia Erivo did not get the Oscar for defying gravity. She was on freaking like she was they had to like swing her around on this jack or something like that when she was doing her whole thing in for defying gravity. She was flying around and singing. She had a corset on. She had a thing around her waist to lift her up in the sky. She had
Hmm.
to sing. How come did she not win a thing? That was Oscar worthy winning.
I,
Like,
Well, because well,
I
probably because the awards are for acting and not for vocal performances,
I mean,
probably.
that's if they included it.
unfortunately.
I was gonna say, and I didn't want to dig at Ariana Grande. I was just more saying I don't know of Ariana's like non like other movie performances outside of like Wicked. In my last like time I've ever like seen Ariana act it in anything was Sam and Cat.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and also
I
Victorious.
Victorious, yeah. Sam, well,
Yeah.
Sam and Cat was like
Yeah, I
chronologically.
know. You know it. Yeah.
It's like, well, it's like when you get like a Nickelodeon actor that went straight to singing. I mean, you're gonna get, but no dig on her singing.
Mhm.
Very, very good vocal
Yes,
artist.
and I will say this. Her her like she fits the role of Glinda really well.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like
Yes.
she looks like a Glinda. It's just I feel like in some parts, like I said the first time I watched it, I just couldn't help but notice that maybe she wasn't directed that great,
It really,
Mhm.
at
yeah.
least in some parts.
Like and like as and I like I'm saying, I'm not saying this is it's necessarily a full dig at her. I think it's her experience. She hasn't necessarily acted in a good couple years to my knowledge until like more recently with Wicked and Wicked for Good. And then because like I said, last time I remember any of her like works, she was doing Sam and Cat and Victorious and all that kind of stuff. So but I could be wrong, you know, of course, like even doing like a little bit of research. Yeah, no, it looks like some of the more recent stuff, at least like on-screen stuff. I guess there's a movie coming out next year, but she did like voiceover stuff for hair. Well, she did Hairspray, but that was live. Zoolander 2, but yeah, it's just there's not a lot of like projects that weren't like music in the last like major acting product projects that were in music in the last like decade or whatever. So I think I might be
Yeah.
kind of on that. So
Yeah.
I was gonna say, maybe we could change the subject a tiny bit. Have you guys ever been in musicals yourselves?
Ha, no.
I the way you went so quick with that, Jenna. The way you went so quick.
I've been in three myself,
Oh
and
wow, which
and I
ones?
actually well, I'll finish my thought. I actually tried out for Aladdin for the Bay
Hmm.
City one. Actually, the guy who played the genie for Bay City, I think he actually got pretty far, if I remember correctly. But
Nice.
we did. It was a junior production, but it was because of some stuff. I remember we did Guys and Dolls.
Hmm.
They were all junior productions, like I said. Some were per face said. Then we did Beauty and the Beast, and then we did High School Musical. And
Hmm.
I will tell you, doing musicals 3 years in a row, I got so tired
Mm,
of
yeah.
of musicals. I actually kind of not cut myself out of doing musicals, but like I just couldn't stand musicals for a good couple years because of it. I mean, of course, some of the stuff that's come out a little bit more recently, I don't mind as much anymore. But I mean, like when you're actually behind the scenes, I gotta imagine like some of these actors are like probably like if they have to go see one for like research or whatever, they're just doing it for work and they're actually like when I'm not doing like this, when I'm not doing the acting or the musical stuff, I'm just like behind the scenes. I'm not doing it. I'm not touching musical crap. Like because like yeah, when I was doing, I was nicely in Guys and Dolls, Gaston and Beauty and the Beast, and
Mm,
then Troy in High School Musical. That was a but I got flack because my mom was the director of the stuff, and people were saying that like, oh, you only got the roles because your mom is like the director. It's like, no, no, I tried out. There were
you put in the
trials.
work.
My mom, what my mom didn't do like the like auditions. It was
Yeah.
other people
Hmm.
that were doing like the casting auditions.
Yeah.
So it was a fair audition. I just got the roles that I did. So,
So, yeah, to answer your question on that. So, unfortunately, I never got the opportunity. I never, I think if I wasn't homeschooled, I probably would have tried out for theater. I think I really would have. But at that time, I was just overwhelmed with everything else. I was doing like regular curricular stuff and
hmm
sports and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I am not going to have time to do this. Like, how the heck am I going to have time to do a theater program like thing? There was just no way at the time. But I do kind of regret not being part of a certain show when I
hmm
was younger because a good friend of mine, well, he and I are now quite good friends actually. Um, he actually got a couple of his friends together. This friend was also homeschooled at the time. This person graduated the same year my sister graduated years ago, and he actually wrote and directed his own original musical.
Oh,
And I give him so much credit for what he's done. I'm so glad he did it. I'm glad he had the guts to do it. Because a lot of people usually just don't have the guts to, but I really give him the points of the guts to do
yeah.
it. Um,
Especially
but
nowadays,
his
people.
his show is called Briar Awakens, and
hmm
it's basically a retelling of Sleeping Beauty.
hmm
So, giving a shout out to my friend Cullen out there. So I'm so
hmm
honestly, I'm just so proud that he even did it. I'm so proud he like had the guts to do it. So it takes a lot of guts to get a whole bunch of homeschool kids together, not just young kids, but also high school kids all together doing the show and project that he was so passionate about. And I'm just so
Right.
thankful it's gonna flop. So
And yeah,
Yeah,
especially
I
right now. Yeah, people need to like take that take that push, take that opportunity and do it. Especially right
yeah,
now, creatively with all this crap going on. But you
yeah.
go ahead, Jenna. I just want to make that point.
oh uh yeah, I never really, as far as I remember, I don't remember doing any musicals, although I was part of a like sort of musical program, but
hmm
that didn't go
Mm,
very far because I did not like it very much. I don't know if it
mhm,
was because I basically didn't like being told what to do or because I want to do my own thing. I was very upfront about doing my own thing.
hmm
I mean I
yeah.
still do, but not as like excessive about it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm,
also I'm starting to realize that I don't think being up on stage is my thing. I prefer to be behind the scenes
Yeah.
doing the backbone of the production, which is like, the story and all that. And actually, in fact, I'm kind of sort of like on and off doing a musical idea, but I don't know if that's gonna take off at all. It's kind of
Yeah.
like in the background. It's one of those projects where it's like I'm gonna work on it if I feel like it.
Yeah. I
I
was
will.
go
Oh,
go
sorry.
go ahead, Jen. Go ahead,
I
Jen.
will say I give full points to anyone who can act, sing, and dance on stage
hmm
because
Yeah.
I'm too terrified to be on the stage. I don't mind being the background. I don't mind being in the background. I don't mind being crew or something like that or just helping with stuff. But I just I know in my gut I could not act. I can write a script. I can write a script. I could probably possibly direct if I was given the opportunity, but I just could not be on that stage. So I give full credit to anyone who can go on that stage.
I will say, from
Mhm,
my own experience, even though
mhm,
I was much younger,
mhm.
it's still they kind of sticks with you in a way.
Yeah,
Stage acting versus like acting, you have to like you can kind of hear it in my voice a little bit too. Like stage acting, you still have to enunciate your words. You have to kind of let your voice boom a little bit. Like, but when you're doing like screen acting, you're a little bit more subtle. You have to be more, you know, you have to be a lot more bombastic on the stage, and
yeah.
I think kind of really goes to show why you can tell when they hire a face actor to be a
Mhm,
character in a musical film
mhm.
when their acting is just more and that might be having a bad point, but my point still stands is like stage actors have to that's why you get all like these old actors.
Mhm.
They're like, I was Shakespearean trained. I was trained to do this ever since I was much younger, or to do all this stuff. And like that's because they understand how to. It's a double-edged sword,
Yeah.
of course, because you might need the subtleties of like some other or types of acting, but when you're trying to find the right way to say this. There,
Mhm.
it's I would like to say it's probably also a fine line because that people what you said, John, about giving a lot of people credit who act and sing and do all that stuff at the same time. They absolutely deserve that credit because they've trained their
Yeah.
not only have they trained their bodies, but they've trained their vocal cords and they've basically trained their head to make sure that they memorize all the dance moves, that they're doing all the stuff, and then they have the guts.
And also
Or
learning when to like breathe at certain points, like actually learning how to control your body's breathing and all that. It's like,
Yeah.
gosh, that takes a lot of practice, man.
yeah, I can say for myself, I've had like times where behind the scenes I had to like take deeper, bigger breaths or whatever just to get better, like do a better take or something because you don't obviously especially when you're a stage musical you don't want to have a breath in between like some of these lines or like musical numbers. So
And
ugh.
that's another thing. I mean, as we kind of circle back to the actors in musicals, I mean, it takes them years of practice, and that's the thing is that the actors who can't sing, they don't have the practice of knowing what their body can do because you can't practice your breathing or your
And
vocals and all in a month. It takes
Mhm.
and
years to do that.
and even if they are being directed and trained to sing a song and they know the song in and out,
Mhm.
like they've been practicing that for a while, but when you actually put, but when they're actually doing the scene
Mhm.
itself, they've just not been trained to do that specific scene in that specific scenario, i.e., probably
Mhm.
with what happened with Anne Hathaway in Les Mis 2012, was that she
Mhm.
was probably trained to stand up and breathe at specific points, but but she probably was not directed, or she was probably not trained to sit while sing. And I'm not like there are plenty of people in wheelchairs who can absolutely sing, but that's
Mhm.
probably because they've been doing it a lot. And they and yeah, it kind of just feels like Anne Hathaway was directed to do one thing, but when actually applied to the scene, it's like it just doesn't work. With like
Thing
the
Yeah,
is
context
that
of the scene, it doesn't work.
there was
yeah,
something in that video you sent where they were talking about like you have to when you are doing a really sad scene, you have to act and kind of look as if you're crying. You're not actually crying because when you're
Yeah.
actually crying, your sinuses kick. And when your sinuses kick and you're trying to sing, it's
Yes.
not going to come out well.
I
It's
was gonna,
like
yeah.
your breathing is uncontrollable. You don't know what to do, and then you're probably like, and like all that tears and all that phlegm is just like it's all icky and gross, and it's not going to sound great.
No, it doesn't.
I was gonna say too. Yeah, and what you mentioned about with her, singing standing up versus singing standing down, of course, that is 100% going to affect how your just even talking, goes. Because, when you're sitting, you're more relaxed, your diaphragm's not like you're not outstretching your whole like chest to make sure you're breathing a certain way. Like you're relaxed. You're kind of like I don't know the right way to say it. Hey, because like I will say sometimes when I'm more relaxed, like sometimes I have a little bit harder time like breathing or my sinuses or it's you know it all kind of comes down to the posture too. So I
Mhm.
think she possibly just needed a little bit more time to adjust her posture and everything. Not adjust her posture, but like work with her posture for the part for singing or that part per se. Yeah.
And I find that really interesting because in that same movie we see Samantha Barks, I think, do really well because not only does she know how to sing on stage, live on stage, but also has experience playing that specific character. So of course it's going to work. And when she's like, and one scene when she was like lying down and had like a thing in her side or whatever, it's like, guess what? She can do just fine because she's done this a million times. It's like, oh my gosh.
It's being trained for it.
Yes, it's almost like practice makes perfect. What the heck, guys?
Yeah.
So true. So true.
It's when, like I said, it's when you get a face actor that maybe just does like talking or, being like pretty or whatever type acting, and then you actually have them perform, like outwardly perform themselves. It kind of comes off a little bit off or weird,
Mhm.
per se. I don't know the right way to put it
Yeah,
exactly.
it's like you get a face actor, but they don't know how to perform with the rest of their body.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean,
That's
there's a joke to be said about Hugh Jackman being all around actor, because if I remember correctly, he's actually a stage actor that went to movies, and then his voice is, yeah. I always think that's a little bit of an aside, but I just think it's funny because we are talking about Les Mis, and he plays a major character in Les Mis, so well, I just think that's a little bit funny that
and yeah. And
well,
feel and something just deep like switching the topic a bit because I feel
yeah.
like this absolutely should need to be mentioned because there's a lot of misconceptions about it is that auto tuning and pitch correction are two completely different things.
Oh yeah.
Pitch correction, pitch correction, and by extension, what auto tune initially was, it was this system where if you messed up a note or two, you could go back and fix them instead of doing 100 takes. And the point is to not notice it's there. And the point is to not overuse it. And if you notice it, then they did it wrong, clearly. Autotune, on the other hand, is a purely artistic choice that singers consciously use for whatever project they want to do. Most of the time, they're not even trying to cover up for anything. It's like they can absolutely sing. It's just an effect, like just like with makeup, and it's like with CGI and rigged character animation. They're not made to be shortcuts, but tools to enhance whatever it
Yeah.
is, whatever they're doing, as long as they're being used correctly.
Yeah, because
Mhm.
didn't it like recently come out? Not recently come out, but I think it's funny because I'm pretty sure T-Pain actually, who is well known for doing a lot of auto-tune in his music back in the past actually has a decent singing voice.
Yes,
It's just he's
exactly.
using it as like an artistic medium. But
Exactly.
you have a point. Is like when you have people who are, I don't want to say I'll say tone deaf. You might have people that are tone deaf and then they fix their stuff in music and it just kind of comes off flat or you know kind of going back to what we were talking about with Belle with Beauty and the Beast.
Mhm.
Her stuff was just really flat. Like a lot of
Yeah,
her singing voice is very flat. Like I'm sorry to say.
and and actually the thing that frustrates me about people obsessing over, people wanting to sing naturally is that these same people that complain about people that suppose like singers and performers that supposedly are using autotune, because remember, autotune is something completely different from pitch correction, is that these same people that are complaining about that are constantly listening to pitch corrected songs. And mind you, everyone is being pitch corrected. Everyone, every song that you probably have listened to in the past month, week, or whatever, like that has been pitch corrected. There's even an entire plugin. There's even a plugin that like singers and performers are already being pitch corrected in real time while they are singing. There's even an entire plugin that does just that. So what these
Pitch
people are
correction.
what these people are essentially doing is putting unrealistic expectations on
Oh
singers
yeah.
and performers to sing perfectly when that is clearly impossible since they're human and they're prone to make mistakes, even if they practice a whole bunch, which, like I said, leads to uncomfortable and awkward movie musicals where the actors are just left there to struggle. And not to and actually, and this is kind of really frustrating, is that unfortunately these performers in these movie musicals are constantly scapegoated because as soon as someone hears something artificial, when mind you, the performers weren't the ones that are heavily editing their performances, it's always the production itself that is doing the heavy editing of their performances with trying to mix pre-recorded and live vocals but can't seem to do it properly. It's like
Mhm.
it's always the production crew, but nobody gets it because it's like abstract concepts. It's like, what do you point at? I can't point at an abstract concept. It's like it's one of those things where it's if it sounds too good, quote unquote, it doesn't feel real, while at the same time not bothering when these same people use pitch correction in a subtle way because they don't know it's there. It's like it is
Yeah.
such a contradictory thing, and it's really frustrating that and actually trying to give it your all, like without the use of pitch correction and whatever, like that can actually strain your neck muscles and vocal folds and can cause serious damage if repeated. So it's not what
Yeah.
it's another example of like people just don't know what they want. It seems like people just change their interests every 5 seconds.
What I really think, if people really wanted to make musicals interesting, is go to people who can make the music sound interesting. Go to someone like Imogen Heap, for example. She's the person who invented something called the Mimo glove, which means when she's singing, she's wearing this glove that's connected to her computer or something, and she can switch the tone of the song. Like she can go on a high note, she can go on a low note, and she can like it's really cool, by the way. It's really, really awesome. And then you have people also kind of like Charlie Puth, who will take things and he'll sync it into the computer and give it a beat, give it this, give it that. He'll take things and make it into something. That's being creative here. That is what we need more of when it comes to musicals, as well as also the vocal dialects and everything. So
Yeah, and it
yeah.
should be noted that I just, yeah, people freak out the moment that they hear a computer, they hear an artificial sound. But let me tell you, autotune slash pitch correction and all that, like, it is not the same thing as AI. Those
Hmm.
are they are completely different things. It is not the same thing as AI.
Yeah, they're programs to uh, they are programs that are used for what those types of programs should be used for is just correction or assistance to make sure that a performer's performance is much better and not to fully replace the performance in
And
some
even
way.
and even then, for like some singers, like when they make their albums, sometimes they'll even do like multiple take. They'll even do like three takes, but then splice together like the takes in each the slice parts from each take to make one like actual like good thing. And it's like, of course
Oh
they're
yeah,
not gonna
100%.
sound as of course they're not gonna sound as good as they are in the album because people don't realize that it's like can these musicians actually be like artists half the time?
Yeah,
And
I mean, look, I
the
mean,
whole entire sorry, it's just the whole
you're
entire
right.
thing is like just if they want to, like, of course they can sing.
Hmm.
Absolutely, they can sing. It's just I don't understand the problem with if they're gonna like they doing like three or four takes and then just splicing together the good parts of each of them and then putting into one. It's like that's literally like video editing. Like video editors also do it.
I mean, and you said this before about like multiple takes or long stretches of like stuff. Look at like vocal like performers for musicians in like stage performances that do like multiple hour like mute like performances or concert. Or it's
Yeah.
like some of these guys wasn't I think there was also like a Queen concert. I think that was like famous like I might be misremembering. Obvi- Obviously, like some of these things happened many years ago, probably even before I was born. But you get like concerts where the performer had literally gave it their all in the performance of a very popular song, and then they just like gave their voice gave out, and they had to stop performing. And they had to take intermissions and stuff. It's very taxing, and that's why it's good that we have all these like breaks and like you like you said, all these like polished all this polished music that gets published is polished. Literally, there's like it's chopped together or it's corrected and everything. A lot of people just kind of take it for granted and think that that's what it sounds like naturally. And yeah, it's an unfair like comparison. So
Yeah.